Andor doesn't open with a Jedi infiltration, it doesn't give you a crawl, a Star Destroyer, or the merest hint of John Williams. It gives you rain, a dreary crapsack corporate zone. It's a little disorienting for those expecting a Star War, a little boring perhaps, but by the end of the scene we'll know exactly what kind of world we're in, why it's so engaging, and what kind of man Cassian Andor is. Or what kind of man he is in BBY5 at any rate. BBY5 means 5 years before the Death Star goes boom in A New Hope, and if you've seen Rogue One, which let's be honest you have, then we already know where Cassian's story ends. But this isn't that story, this is the story of how a nobody from nowhere becomes the guy who will shoot his informant in the back just to protect the mission. And we start here in a corporate hellhole in the rain. Morlana One's a company planet. This isn't the Empire, not officially, it's what the Empire allows. Privatised governance. Preox Morlana's the corporation in charge here, and this is a place where the law serves profit, not people. The cops are corpo security guards, the fines are bribes, and everything, including the girls, is for sale. We've seen this before in Shadowrun, in Blade Runner, The Expanse and Robocop, but if you think this nightmarish trope remains firmly in sci-fi, you'll be disappointed to know that there are examples of corporation-controlled towns today, such as Prospera in Honduras, which bypassed Honduran sovereignty and created its own laws, while the UK's Special Economic Zones and US's Special Innovation Zones promise to start taking such ideas mainstream in the West. This isn't just sleaze, it's hierarchy masquerading as order. The corpos exist to enforce profit, not justice. Every interaction in this zone is about leverage, who can make you comply and what happens if you don't. Survival is compliance. The guards, the fines, where you park your ship, all of it's rigged to remind you of where you sit in the chain. This is what TV tropes would call a crapsack world, a setting where everything's broken, corrupt and hostile to human dignity. But what makes it hit harder is how banal it all is. This isn't dystopia through a stylized lens, it's just Tuesday for everyone living in it. That's the world we're walking into. Before we hear a word of dialogue, Andor is already telling us what kind of story this is. The rain, the empty bridge, the neon-drenched alleys, this could be the spy who came in from the cold in a galaxy far, far away. It's classic Cold War atmosphere, shadows, isolation, uncertainty. We're in a world where everyone is watching, no one is safe, and the system will eat you alive. The first words in the series come from a guard outside of what turns out to be a brothel. No weapons, no comms, no credit, no nonsense. If you're listening actively, this line may have tripped you up already. It did me. It's awkward. A clumsy corporate contraction that doesn't really make sense because as a list it's inconsistent. At first I, and according to Reddit many others, were confused by the credit line because weapons and comms relate to things you're not allowed to bring in. But they want you to have credit, right? But of course he means we don't extend credit. They'll let you settle up at the end of the night, but you can't leave without paying. I like to think it also serves as a character introduction, like the one scanned Cassian and popped a character info sheet up on a screen for the guard who's now relaying that info to us. No weapons. Cassian isn't a violent person and does whatever he can to avoid being violent where possible. No comms. He's not opening up to the people who love him about the things going on in his life. No credit. He doesn't have the means to improve his life in the way he's striving to. No nonsense. Cassian doesn't have fun. He doesn't fuck around. He's constantly on high alert. I think it's late season 2 before we see him doing anything in terms of relaxation. Maybe this also tells us how he deals even with those closest to him. The way he greets Brasso later in this episode is no nonsense. No hello, no how have you been, no chat about the weather, just straight to business. For the guard to be delivering the concepts together so clumsily is lazy operational efficiency, which is definitely a theme this show comes back to. These restrictions are about safety on the surface, but they're about control. Cassian enters a space where he's unarmed, unconnected and outnumbered. That's not just house rules, it's structural disempowerment. Even the language reinforces a theme. Trust is revoked here by default. Everything has a price, and you're already behind. And one more line. Upstairs lounge is closed tonight. If every single moment in good TV is purposeful and every word means something, what is the point of the brothel guard informing Cassian that the upstairs lounge is closed? It tells us there's more going on here than what we're shown. That's the ethos of the show in microcosm. By making the brothel spatially complex and then denying access to part of it, the writers are subtly teaching us Pay attention to what you're not being shown. This lesson will matter as the show becomes a web of rooms, doors, corridors and secrets. So no, it's not just a mood line, it's a boundary, a curtain. It's not for the likes of you. Unless you know where to look, you have to notice what the show isn't saying, what it's leaving just out of frame. The upstairs lounge is where I pull those curtains back, it's where I follow the corridors the story hints at but doesn't fully show. The details, the subtext, the quiet choices, this is the space where they all come together. So make yourself at home, and if you want to keep seeing the parts of Andor most people miss, you know where to find me. One thing that quietly stands out in this scene: the madam at the brothel chooses to deal with Cassian first despite 2 other men already waiting. Cassian offers no bribe, no prior connection is implied, so why him? It could be as simple as attraction, or that the 2 men are known regulars, loud, entitled and tiresome. She may prefer a quiet, polite stranger over troublemakers. But there's also a chance she picks up on something in Cassian, his focus, his stillness, his intent. He's not acting like a lonely, horny drifter, he's searching, and in a place where reading people fast is survival, she might sense that this guy isn't here to waste time or be trifled with. Her decision subtly reinforces one of the show's themes. Even under oppressive systems, people can sense who's playing the game and who might just be capable of flipping the board over. Inside, Cassian blends in like a pro. Or tries. It's hard to appear unnoticed as one of 3 customers in a club. He's not here for a good time, he's here searching. He says he's looking for a girl from Kenari. Cassian's behaviour and dialogue here are coded as lies to the viewer. Even though Cassian isn't lying, it feels like he is, because the setting, the setup and the audience's genre memory all signal danger, sleaze and false fronts. And the madam picks up on that immediately and narrows her eyes. This isn't new for mysterious men to turn up looking for their sister, and they usually have bad intent. Maybe she doesn't get a bad vibe from him, that's why she spends the whole time intrigued, studying him. His story screams bad news, but she knows people and she doesn't see villainy in him. It's incongruous. The writers want the viewers to wonder, is this real? Is this man sincere? Which makes it all the more tragic when we later realise it is. He's careful, but not fake, doesn't lie unless he has to, doesn't escalate, and in Andor that's what Spycraft looks like. Let's talk about these corporate guards. They're off duty, drunk, but they still think they're in charge. When Cassian leaves, they follow, and the shakedown begins. It's a scam, they're using jurisdiction as a bludgeon, trying to extort money by pretending this is protocol. This is what authoritarian looks like at street level, not grand speeches, just petty men with too much permission and too little oversight. The Empire doesn't need to be here, these guys are its local proxy. And Cassian, he plays along, offers them 300 credits. We don't know if he even has that kind of money on him, and it ends up not mattering. One of the corpos starts searching his pockets, and here's a thing, after all the scrawno insults they levelled at Cassian in the club, the guy who goes to frisk him is actually shorter and skinnier than he is. Given that I'm assuming nothing in this show is accidental, I wonder if that's a little nod to how some men feel embiggened by being lent a small and temporary amount of power by a corporate system that will quite happily chew up your corpse once it's finished extracting shareholder value from you. In an attempt to take one guy out and start a physical confrontation that might change the dynamic, Cassian throws his head backwards into Scrawno's face. Nose meets skull, cartilage meets brain. Scrawno doesn't get back up. Now the power dynamic shifts. The other guard starts with an accusatory tone, but we see him realise, he just killed a cop, I'm a witness, he has my blaster. He panics, starts spinning a story, it was an accident, we'll go in together, we'll tell them what happened. Cassian realises the obvious right away, the guard's going to change his story the second he's among friends. This guy came at us, we were just minding our own business and he killed Verlo. So Cassian shoots him in the face. It's point blank, it's cold, efficient and it's final. But he didn't have any other choice here. His momentary panic attack afterwards seems to suggest he hasn't killed often, doesn't do it for fun and doesn't really know what to do now. He runs. Once he entered the brothel, nothing that happened was his choice. He was not the aggressor in the argument with the guards, and when he left he just wanted to go. He cannot and should not allow these low-level bullies to take his ship and his freedom, and he can't leave the last guy alive. You'll hear Cassian coded as morally grey by a lot of reviewers, but is he? He is coded that way, the mood is noir, the visual language is shadowy and ambiguous, the character doesn't emote much, the dialogue is clipped and defensive, the consequences are fatal. It's obvious that these types of tense conversations and dangerous interactions are not new to him. He's a cagey survivor threatened by a rigged system and placed in a no-win scenario. But Cassian is polite, he's not cruel, he doesn't escalate or seek trouble, leaves quietly when asked. All he wants is distance and privacy. I think what we learn here is that although Cassian has been shaped by the morally grey underworld, understands it and functions primarily within it, he himself does not appear to have been twisted by it. Here's the real takeaway. This isn't a heroic introduction. It's not about good versus evil. It's about a man who knows how to survive, a man who knows what systems do to people like him, a man who's already versed in a world of shadows, lies and secrets. In Andor, survival is rebellion, not in the grand cinematic way, but in the small choices. The lies, the silence, the unwillingness to submit. Cassian's world doesn't punish evil, it punishes weakness, and that's why he can't afford to blink. The writers want us to feel that, not with exposition but with tension. Cassian doesn't narrate his trauma, he just walks away from a pile of corpses and keeps moving. This isn't a rebellion yet, it's just a guy who seems to understand the underworld, trying to find his sister. And if it feels more like a spy film than a space opera, that's no accident. This is Tony Gilroy dragging Star Wars into Cold War territory. This isn't about force powers or chosen ones, it's about compromise, surveillance, and systems built to crush people like you and me. And it's not about hope, it's about the price of rebellion, the price of resisting corrupt systems. And Cassian Andor's already paying it. We cut to a new planet, Morlana system, free trade sector. We're somewhere very different. No rain, no neon, just dirt, dust, corrugated roofs and repurposed ship hulls turned into buildings. Utilitarian, it's the classic Star Wars look. The people have access to galaxy-spanning tech, but they live a hardscrabble life, work with their hands, and are careful about when they use the heating. They can access a faster-than-light drive component more easily than fresh water. It's Mos Eisley if it was a factory town instead of a port, and rolling through this dry little town in the Morlana system is a red tank-track droid called B2 Emo, who immediately gets pissed on by a wild space dog before seeing it off with a taser. Welcome to Ferrix. B2 is a droid who stutters, shuffles and sulks. It's adorable, sure, but tonally, it's odd. He feels like someone dropped Wall-E into Children of Men. He's our emotional canary in the coal mine, with an on-the-nose name in case that wasn't obvious. He shows us that Cassian does have warmth and loyalty in his life. He lives with people. He's not a lone wolf, but also, this is Andor. Even the comic relief has traumatic buffering issues in a dying battery. When B2 calls for a sleeping Cassian, Kassa, it triggers a flashback, or a dream. We cut to a girl shouting the name. We immediately assume this is his sister. They speak a different language, which is not translated. Let's take a moment to look at why. As viewers, we're watching something meaningful unfold, but we're not part of it, not fully welcome, not given easy answers. That's how Cassian will feel one day, alienated from his childhood, identity, and place of origin. These early scenes are teaching us. Scene 1 showed us how to pay attention to what you're not shown, and don't assume things are the way they might feel. And now again, Andor is teaching us how to watch Andor. Pay attention to non-verbal communication. Pay attention to group dynamics. Pay attention to tension or trust between characters, if you want to follow this show. Because in Andor, the truth is rarely spoken directly, it's coded, hidden, acted out. Kassa and his sister live in the middle of the forest with a whole tribe of unsupervised children. It's odd, they appear to be a primitive tribe, but they've repurposed what appears to be the artifacts of a technologically advanced civilization. Are their clothes repurposed flight suits? Is this post-apocalyptic? Kassa's sister is pointing at a giant starship in Kenari's atmosphere. Even from miles away, the children feel the shockwave as it explodes in the sky and crashes into a distant mountain range. This doesn't just set up backstory, it seeds mystery. Where are the grown-ups? Why do these kids live like this? And what the heck was on that ship? Back in the present, Cassian bandaging bruised hands. He looks wrecked, physically and emotionally. This isn't just a guy that's been in a fight. This is someone who's been running on panic and fumes. B2 rolls up, already anxious, and asks where he was. Cassian shrugs it off. He doesn't want to talk about it. So B2 changes tack, listing off the people who came by while he was gone. Marva, Brasso, Jezzy, Windy. The names blur together for us, but the message is clear. People are looking for him. People noticed he was gone. That list is a pressure point, not just logistically, emotionally.
It reminds us that Cassian isn't some lone gunman drifting through life. He has a home, a history, and people who give a damn whether he walks through the door, and he's putting all of that at risk. So he asks B2 to lie for him, not just a vague cover-up, an explicit, memory-altering lie. Say I was never here, say you didn't see me. And B2 hesitates, not because he doesn't want to help, but because he literally can't until he recharges. His power reserves are low, and carrying out complex deception protocols takes juice. That little sci-fi quirk gives this moment a surprising tension. Lying costs you in Andor, even if you're a droid. At this moment, Cassian crouches down and starts clearing debris out of B2's venting. Most probably missed it, but it tells us a lot, because even now, even after killing 2 men and facing down the coming fallout, Cassian still sees what his friend needs. He still stops to take care of someone. Not because it helps him, not because it gains him anything, just because that's who he is. And in a story full of secrets, betrayals, and growing darkness, that one moment of basic human attentiveness speaks aloud. Cassian isn't spiraling, he's not turning cold. He's clinging to whatever soul he has left. Cassian steps outside and Ferrix springs to life. It's a working class town, you can feel it. Brick buildings, dusty roads, workers in gloves shouting over machines. It's got a Tarkovsky Does Blue Collar vibe. He finds Brasso, a hulking man with gentle eyes and a proud face who looks like he's spent his whole life doing backbreaking labor and never complained once. Without even a greeting, Cassian launches into his lie. We bumped into each other last night. We drank your hidden stash. I insulted your nog. I fell and got a black eye. It's a full script, practiced but casual, like they've done this kind of thing before, because they probably have. Not this exact lie, of course, but I would suggest lies are the grease that keeps Ferrix turning. The whole town lives in the gaps between rules, bending them, skimming around them, helping each other survive them. Because on Ferrix, survival isn't about compliance, it's about community, protection, discretion. And that means sometimes you don't ask questions. You just say, yeah, sounds about right, and carry on. Brasso plays along. He's not confused, he's not surprised, but he is uneasy. This time Cassian's not just slippery, he's shaken. The black eye, the tension, the timing, it smells wrong. But Brasso doesn't press. He doesn't demand answers. He's resistant for a moment, as this is serious, but only for a moment. And then he adapts, adds to the lie, makes it better. That's what makes this moment special. It isn't just Cassian crafting a cover. It's Brasso choosing to protect him without needing to understand why. Because that's the culture of Ferrix in a nutshell. Everyone's dodgy, but no one's alone. These people have side hustles, black market repairs, unregistered parts. The Empire made life itself illegal, so Ferrix adapted. Everyone's guilty. That's how you stay clean. Brasso is the emotional core of that system, a man who doesn't scheme for himself but will life you in a heartbeat if you're one of his own. He's not thinking just about Cassian, he's thinking about the town, the people, of what might be following Cassian back. His parting line hits hard. Tell your mother she can afford to put the heat on. It was freezing there last night. Make yourself useful. There's no sarcasm, no rebuke, just care, cloaked in banter, wrapped in normality. But the sentiment underneath is simple. If you're still one of us, act like it. Take care of your people. Because that's what Ferrix is built on. Not laws, not systems, not weapons, but warmth, quiet solidarity, and a kind of collective vigilance that never stops watching its own. Just briefly talk through a few of the themes and takeaways from this scene. Oppression isn't always a stormtrooper. Ferrix isn't under direct imperial rule, but the pressure they apply is everywhere. Economic, social, psychological. Surveillance isn't just cameras, it's gossip, favours, and who remembers your face. Secrets have a cost. Cassian has to lie to the people that love him. It's survival, but it's also how you become a stranger in your own life. Power is contextual. In Morlana, Cassian was hunted. In Ferrix, he's still hunted, but also respected. He has history. That makes him vulnerable and dangerous. Spycraft is theatre. Whether it's bribing a droid or scripting a night of drinks, Cassian survives by managing narratives. That's espionage, not gadgets, stories. Rebellion starts in small betrayals. The system is always watching. Ferrix looks like freedom. but it's a place where hiding matters, lying is survival, and power lies in whispers. This is not the dramatic fallout from a double murder, not yet. It's the quiet part, the cover-up, the whisper network, the slow layering of risk. Scene 2 doesn't just move the plot forward, it shows us what rebellion feels like at ground level. Exhaustion, routine, favours, family, surveillance, and a creeping sense that something's going to give. And when it does, Ferrix will need to be ready, or it'll be buried. We cut back to Pre-Mor. We're in the security headquarters. We're introduced to Syril Karn standing rigid at attention. His uniform is tailored, immaculate, almost obsessively so, in stark contrast to Chief Inspector Hyne, slouched at his desk in a wrinkled uniform and with the casual disinterest of someone long past caring. Right away, the dynamic is clear. Karn is an eager zealot, Hyne a tired bureaucrat. The tension isn't just in the conversation, it's in posture, tone, fabric. Karn treats it like a double homicide, Hyne treats it like a scheduling conflict. There's something odd about this whole exchange between Karn and Hyne. Nobody cracks a joke, nobody laughs, but the rhythm, the energy, the discomfort and the cringe, it feels like it's been written as comedy. This scene is coded like deadpan satire. The content is serious, 2 men are dead, but the framing is corporate, bureaucratic and petty. The stakes and the delivery don't match, it's incongruity, and that mismatch is the joke. Hyne talks about covering up the murders as if he's ordering a sandwich wrong. He uses phrases like regrettable misadventure, conjure a suitable accident, nothing too heroic, as if the real danger isn't a crime, it's bad optics. Meanwhile, Karn stands at attention like he's trying to win a gold star in fascist prefect school. When Hyne casually asks if he's altered his uniform, Karn stammers, and light tailoring, eyes lowered like he's been asked about his porn history. It's comedy of embarrassment, not for what he's done, but for wanting to do the job too well in a system that does not care. It's an incredible moment played completely straight that shows you exactly who Karn is. A rule follower obsessed with order, a mid-level nobody who's clinging to status through aesthetics, and a man desperate to be taken seriously in a system that barely functions. And then Hyne moves on. No mockery, no reaction. That's what makes it worse and funnier. It's a moment built on the silence between characters, one man desperate to prove himself, the other desperate to get lunch. The power dynamic is funny because it's so bleak. One man believes in justice, the other believes in metrics. That's a joke and it's horrible. Andor doesn't point and laugh, it just lets you sit in the absurdity until it curdles. Hyne doesn't care about the murders at all. He knew one of the dead, Kravas, and describes him as awful and overdue a comeuppance. His focus is crystal clear. Keep the Empire out of Preox Morlana's business. Keep the numbers clean. Minimize attention. He tells Karn to conjure an accident, falsify the report, move the location, strip it of scandal, turn it into a footnote. And Karn, he's stunned, appalled, not because he's moral, but because he believes in the system. He thinks rules matter. Hyne knows better. Appearances matter. Reports matter. No one upstairs wants a mess. Let's have an accident report waiting when I get back. Hyne's line lands like a punch. It's the moment we understand what kind of world we're in. Truth doesn't matter. Justice doesn't matter. Only outcomes that preserve the hierarchy. Here are some themes and takeaways from this scene. Truth is a liability. The real story would draw heat. The false story lets everyone move on. In this world, the truth gets you demoted. Authoritarianism is banal. These aren't moustache-twirling villains, they're middle managers, and that's what makes them chilling. Karn is not a hero. His outrage isn't noble, it's naive. He's not fighting for justice, he's fighting for order, and the show is quietly warning us where that leads. And systems don't break, they rot. This isn't a system failing, it's working exactly as intended, and that's the scariest part. This isn't a debate, it's a lesson. Hyne teaches Karn how to survive in a corrupt system. Stay quiet, keep the numbers low, and never get noticed. Karn listens, but he doesn't learn. And that's the ticking time bomb, because some people aren't meant to follow, they're meant to enforce. We drop into a different kind of tension now, not the brute danger of Morlana or the satirical dread of corporate HQ, but something messier, more personal. Cassian walks into a repair shop on Ferrix. Timm Karlo is negotiating with customers in multiple languages, busy but watchful. And when he sees Cassian, all he says with a sigh is, "She's in the yard." He doesn't need to explain who. On Ferrix, names are optional. Everyone knows everybody's business and pretends not to. Out back, Bix Caleen is welding. She turns her head and despite the mask sees Cassian and doesn't miss a beat before brushing him off, telling him she's busy. Not cold, controlled. She sets the tone and keeps the advantage. This isn't a reunion, it's a negotiation. These two know each other too well to waste time. Cassian needs her help, specifically her buyer, the man she sells stolen Imperial tech to. But this isn't how it usually works. She moves slow, builds bundles, wait for the right time. Cassian, he wants to sell something now. He wants to break her operational rhythm, and this is new and she doesn't like it. She clocks the bruises, asks what happened, he lied. She jabs him with a line about jealous husbands, a spark of history buried under dry banter. Whatever's between them, it's tangled, but not dead. And then he reveals what he's got, a sealed, untraceable NS9 Starpath unit. Not scrap, not petty, this is valuable, military-grade tech. It changes the room. Bix asks how long he's had it. He says he's been saving it, and that rings true. He didn't just steal this in a panic. He wasn't on Preox Morlana for that. He's been holding it back. It's a parachute, waiting for the right moment to deploy, and that moment is here. She pushes. Did it come from one of her ops? He snaps back. There's tension, not just because he's holding out, but because she is too. She skims, he hoards. They both bend the rules they set for each other. And yet neither walks away, because underneath all of that there's loyalty. Not romantic, not even necessarily warm, just forged in fire loyalty, the kind Ferrix thrives on. And then Timm appears. He's got an excuse, something about a Wabani run, but he's not here for business. He's here to see what's going on between Bix and Cassian, and he sees just enough to get dangerous. Cassian clocks the vibe immediately. He pokes at it, not cruelly but pointedly. Bix shuts it down. Cassian presses again, needing to know that Timm is out of the loop. She confirms he knows nothing. Cassian believes her, but we can already see the cracks. Timm's not dangerous because he knows too much. He's dangerous because he doesn't and wants to. Cassian makes one last ask, reminds her that her contact wanted to meet him, and Bix, in a quiet, reluctant beat, agrees to make the call. As Cassian steps out, Timm watches from the shadows of the shop, not just curious, but rattled. Timm lets Cassian know that he thinks he's bad for Bix, trying to reassert ground he knows he's already lost, and Cassian knows exactly how to twist the knife. Then you'd better find yourself a less complicated woman. Good luck with that. But this isn't a witty goodbye, there's no satisfaction here. Cassian walks off because he has to, and Timm is left standing in it, stewing in something he doesn't yet understand. It's not just jealousy, it's fear, a sense that the ground is shifting beneath him. Whatever Bix and Cassian are tangled up in, it runs deeper than anything he can touch. From this point forward, Timm isn't just watching, he's deciding. And for a man like that, with that much insecurity and that little power, that's where the real danger begins. Some notes and themes. Secrecy is survival. Everyone on Ferrix has something to hide, even the ones trying to do right. They all lie as a form of protection for themselves and for each other. Cassian's desperation is new. He's usually one step ahead, but now he's running, and this Starpath unit, it wasn't stolen in a panic. It was stashed. He's breaking the glass now. Bix and Cassian's relationship is functional, not clean. They don't need trust to work together, they need necessity. They lie, fight, resent each other, but they move in sync when it matters. This scene is like a pressure gauge. No explosions, no fights, just a slow build of secret stress and simmering jealousy, and everyone pretending they can't feel it. But we can, and it's not going away. Back on Kenari, the children watch smoke rise on the horizon. The older kids gather near a pot of thick black paint. They chatter urgently, working something out. There's energy here, purpose. They're not scared. They're getting ready. Cassian steps forward to join them. His sister follows, but he turns and gestures sharply. She's not coming, not this time. Is protective, almost rehearsed, as if he already knows what this moment will mean. He approaches the group. When he reaches for the paint, an older boy slaps his hand away, hard. A warning, you're too young, stay behind. It's the same message. And now he's hearing it too. But before the boy can push him out, a girl intervenes. She's older, confident, possibly the leader. She doesn't speak much, doesn't need to. Her nod is enough. Cassian's in. He dips into the paint, draws a thick line from lip to neck, the same pattern as the others. It's not just a look, it's an identity. But I think this scene foreshadows him being recruited as a spy, which is one of the main plots of this season. First of all, the hunting party has cell-like dynamics. It's small, it's purposeful, it operates on trust and minimal communication. There's a leader, a mission, a vetting process. No ceremony, just a nod. There's no questions asked. Cassian isn't told what they're doing, doesn't demand an explanation. He sees smoke on the horizon and follows the group into it. That's Spycraft, that's rebellion. Most operatives in Andor work without full context. They act on belief and instinct or necessity. That starts here for him. Masks, codes, and symbols. The black paint is visual code, identity erased, tribe assumed. That's a classic spy motif, masking the self to serve the mission. Even the way he's marked by someone else's permission is telling. He's not in control of the terms. He's being initiated into a structure that existed before him. Hierarchy and gatekeeping. We see a mirrored power structure. Cassian gatekeeps his sister, a boy gatekeeps him. That's how rebel networks work in Andor, and in real life. Layered, cautious, always watching for weak links. You don't just walk in, you're observed, vetted, and chosen. Cassian paints a line on his face, and crosses one in his life. This isn't just a flashback, it's a quiet origin story. A boy steps out of childhood and into something darker, riskier, and more adult. Not because he's ready, but because he has to. He denied his sister's place in the group only to be denied his own, until someone higher up decides otherwise. In that moment, a hierarchy is revealed, a ritual performed, and a role accepted. He doesn't know what lies ahead, only that he must go. No words, no guidance, just instinct, symbols, and silence. It's not the beginning of a mission, it's the beginning of how Cassian survives, by learning to read rooms, follow unspoken rules, and step through doors he's not invited into. This is how rebels are made, quietly, one choice at a time. This is Cassian's first voluntary move toward danger, not for survival, but for belonging. This scene is a rite of passage. The mission hasn't started yet, but Cassian has already crossed a Rubicon. We return to Syril Karn, lingering outside a door in the Pre-Mor security complex. He's frozen, not just physically, internally. You can feel the battle in him. He too is about to cross a Rubicon. Not legally, but culturally. He was told to stand down. He's not standing down. The camera frames him off-center, uneasy. He's facing a doorway but placed awkwardly to the side. It's subtly disorienting, like the frame itself doesn't know what he's doing, and maybe he doesn't either. He goes to step forward, hesitates, then pulls back when two subordinates walk by. One glances at him and checks in, asking if all's well. Karn can barely respond. He mutters a vague answer, then awkwardly clears his throat. After they've already walked off, he calls out a polite thank you like a schoolboy rehearsing etiquette after the fact. When he finally enters, we see him hunched over a terminal. He's scanning flight data, digging through logs. Nothing covert, but it's a defiance. This isn't what Hyne told him to do. He's not following the script. He gets more focused, directing the technician to scroll, pause, rewind. Eventually something pings, an odd sublight trace, unidentified, old model, something that shouldn't be there. The technician brushes it off. Nights are chaotic, records get messy, but Karn isn't hearing it. In his mind, this isn't a minor error, it's a crack in the walls, a failure of duty, a lapse in vigilance. He demands follow-up, wants the full record of where this ghost ship came from and where it went. When the technician explains it'll take time, maybe too much time, Karn doesn't blink. He responds like a middle manager with something to prove. If you can't do it, I'll find someone who can. And just like that, the scene tells us everything. Karn doesn't need proof to act. He needs a reason to believe he's right. He's not driven by evidence, he's driven by unease. Something doesn't sit right, and that's enough. This isn't about two murdered corpos, not anymore. This is about how Syril Karn sees the world. Messy, lazy, and dangerous unless someone like him straightens it out. He's not disobeying Hyne because he's brave, he's doing it because he can't not. The creeping discomfort in his gut, the feeling that things are wrong, that someone is getting away with something, he has to scratch it. He can't help himself. But this isn't just justice, it's control. And when control slips even a little, Karn doesn't reflect. He tightens the grip. Themes and takeaways for this scene? Fear disguised as authority. Karn doesn't radiate confidence, he radiates anxiety weaponized into command. Systems don't suppress everyone equally. Hyne bends the rules to avoid attention. Karn clings to the rules like scripture. but both are surviving a system that rewards the appearance of order, not the presence of it. Obsession thrives in the gaps. All it takes is one blip, one ghost trace in the data, and Karn spins it into a mission, not because he knows what it is, but because he can't tolerate not knowing. It's a quiet scene, but something shifts here. Syril Karn doesn't just believe in the system, he's about to weaponize it. This next scene is short, but it's not filler. It functions like a pressure test, on Cassian, on Ferrix, and on how close to the edge things are starting to run. We open with Nurchi, a small-time local weasel who clearly thinks he's a player, intercepting Cassian on the street. He's owed money and he's looking to collect. The conversation starts like an old friend greeting someone in a rush, but it doesn't stay that way for long. Nurchi doesn't work alone. He's bought Vetch, a giant hulking alien, to loom behind him. Not speak, not act, just stand there. That's what makes this scene funny and a little sad. Vetch isn't dangerous here. He's ornamental, hired presence. He's the muscle Nurchi thinks he needs to play the tough guy. But Cassian sees right through it. He's not scared, not defensive. He's tired, busy, and already under too much pressure to indulge someone like Nurchi. But instead of threatening back, he tries something more effective: humiliation. Cassian speaks directly to Vetch, not Nurchi. He asks questions like, "Since when do you take orders from him? And do you need work this bad?" These aren't digs, they're surgical strikes. He's dismantling Nurchi's authority in real time. Even worse, he's doing it in public. In Ferrix, respect matters, and Cassian just took his away. Vetch's line, "He said all I had to do was stand here," is the quiet death of Nurchi's plan. The power in the Sheen has shifted entirely. Nurchi tries to escalate with words, but Cassian doesn't engage. He doesn't need to. He's already won. He ends the scene on a note that's both graceful and sharp. "I'm going to do us a favour and not mention this happened." That's not a threat, it's a mercy. It tells Nurchi, "You've embarrassed yourself, I'm choosing not to make it worse." That stings more than any fight would have. And we learn something about Cassian here, a skill he has. Cassian doesn't just diffuse threats, he destabilizes them. By turning his attention to Vetch and sowing quiet embarrassment, he fractures the alliance in front of him. It's a kind of social sabotage, reframing Nurchi not as a threat but as a joke, and doing it in a way that forces his own backup to question the dynamic. Cassian's strength isn't brute force, it's disruption. He makes enemies doubt each other, turn on each other. Nurchi starts the scene angry at Cassian and ends it angry with Vetch. In a world where alliances are paper thin, that's often enough to dissolve the threat altogether. On the surface, Nurchi and Vetch don't really seem like a threat. They're impotent. Nurchi's all mouth, petty, performative, and unlikely to follow through. Vetch is big, sure, but passive and clearly more loyal to Cassian than Nurchi realizes. But the two still offer significant peril to Cassian at the moment, and he knows it's dangerous, because this isn't about who throws the first punch, it's about who's watching. Ferrix is a place where a single word at the wrong time can set a chain reaction in motion. Cassian's control here is razor thin. All it takes is for Vetch to decide he's insulted, or for Nurchi to try and save face, and just like that, things could tip. The last thing he needs is to be hauled in by local law enforcement with a manhunt on. There's a structural function to this scene. It isn't just a character beat, it's reinforcing a core idea about Cassian. He doesn't rule through fear or violence, he navigates through social fluency. He knows how Ferrix works, who matters, and how to win without drawing a weapon. It also tells us that tension is rising, debts are being called in, alliances are shifting, and even casual interactions are starting to fray. Takeaways from this scene: respect as currency. In Ferrix, you don't need power if you have presence. Nurchi has none. Cassian doesn't need backup to handle him, just leverage. Masculinity and posturing. This is a clash of insecure men in a world that doesn't offer much space for pride. Nurchi's insecurity is chronic. Cassian's acute and situational, but Cassian doesn't play, he refuses to perform, he undermines rather than overpowers. Isolation is catching up. Cassian's web of obligations is tightening. He's out of time, out of money, and out of patience. Everyone seems to want something from him now. Once again, Ferrix isn't just a place, it's a pressure cooker. Every encounter tightens the noose. This town runs on favours, fronts, and quiet threats. It rewards silence and punishes spectacle, and Cassian's running out of ways to stay invisible. This next scene is quiet, but it hums with purpose. It's a portrait of hidden systems, emotional, social, and technological, all converging on a single moment of defiance. We return to the shop. Bix brushes past Timm with a casual "won't be long," But there's distance in her tone, a wall going up. She's not just running errands, she's peeling away from him, and he feels it. Cut to the streets of Ferrix, narrow alleys, compressed buildings. Bix moves with purpose, but she's being followed. Timm is just a few steps behind, blending in, badly. When he bumps into a masked alien and loses her in the crowd, it's not just a stumble, it's symbolic. He's not part of this world. Not really. Bix slips into a modest-looking shop, run by Salmon and his son Wilmon. She gives them the name of a part she's supposedly after, and Salmon directs her towards the back with a polite nod. Maybe surprised, maybe not. It's Ferrix. People ask few questions. Timm's role here is pathetic. He follows, he fails, he sulks, but it's exactly that impotence that makes him dangerous. He's being excluded from something he doesn't understand and is eating at him. His jealousy isn't just romantic, it's existential. In a town built on secrets, Timm is realizing he doesn't matter, not in the way Bix or Cassian do. That's a powder keg waiting for a spark. Bix heads out into the rear yard, a sprawl of tangled cables, rusted machines and forgotten hardware. She disappears into a structure, half silo, half utility shed, and climbs a narrow ladder inside. At the midpoint she stops, pulls back a panel, there's a hidden transmitter tucked away inside. She activates it, the lights flicker, the signal goes out. Bix isn't just sending a message, she's making a decision. The moment she activates that transmitter, she's escalating. It's not a favour for Cassian anymore, it's commitment. The scene's staging reinforces all this. The journey Bix takes, slipping through back streets, avoiding detection, disappearing into hardware, is a perfect metaphor for how rebellion functions in Andor. It's not flags and slogans, it's dirty fingernails, whispered codes, and trust placed in the right people. As the signal goes out, the camera rises, slowly, steadily, pulling upward through the shaft and into the sky. The sound of Ferrix grows quieter. Bix grows smaller. It's striking. She becomes more isolated, first physically and then in the frame. And when she triggers the radio, we don't stay with her. The camera leaves, it drifts upwards. She's shrinking. The world is growing. The message is already out of her hands. It's a moment of contact, but it's also a moment of risk. Once that signal goes out, the story accelerates. Whatever happens next has already begun. And no one, not Cassian, not Bix, and certainly not Timm, can control what's coming. We're back at Pre-Mor HQ, a sterile, slanted glass operations centre where the staff are clearly not used to being busy. They're lounging, one slurping noodles, and others fiddling with a console. This isn't the engine room of authority, it's a break room with delusions of infrastructure. Then Karn enters, and the atmosphere lurches. He doesn't walk in, he strides. In contrast to the slack posture of his subordinates, Syril moves like someone trying to animate his body with purpose, like he's wearing the idea of command but hasn't grown into it yet. He barks Ferrix without context, as if urgency will conjure respect. The room half-heartedly reacts. What follows is a fascinating study in managerial fantasy versus bureaucratic reality. Syril is clearly trying to run an operation, pulling threads, asking for data, demanding outreach. But the systems don't respond. The census is 6 years out of date. Ferrix is technically in their jurisdiction, but essentially autonomous, and the people around him, disengaged, passive-aggressive, barely pretending to work. There's no loyalty here, just inertia. Karn isn't wrong to be alarmed, he's just wrong to believe that urgency alone will fix anything. His repeated questions, what, how old is it, where else would we put it, are rhetorical but desperate. He's improvising leadership, expecting momentum to kick in, but all he gets is friction. And then he snaps. The line, "This is the murder of 2 Pre-Mor employees," rings out across the room. And immediately the show does something clever. It cuts to a wide shot. A huge sterile atrium. Syril, small and alone, turns and scans the room like he's realizing the echo is the only thing answering him. It's a visual gut punch. He doesn't command this space. He interrupts it. The silence that follows is louder than the outburst itself. And yet he rallies, just like he did with Chief Hyne. Syril can't stop himself. He's committed to the bit. He orders a bulletin, slam the channels, flood them, then gestures vaguely at an empty part of the floor and asks if a desk can be set up here. It's a child playing general. No one responds, so he resorts to performance again, flinging an arm, shouting, "Let's go!" forcing urgency into a room that just wants to go back to its noodles. Takeaways. Authoritarian cosplay. Syril wants to be a leader, but his power is entirely performative. He shouts, gesticulates, escalates, but nothing bends around him. He's playing soldier in a room full of civilians. Control through noise. Karn doesn't have a strategy, he has volume. His outburst is less about justice and more about desperation to be seen, heard, and obeyed. The myth of jurisdiction. The exchange about Ferrix being technically under Pre-Mor control highlights a key theme. The authority is often claimed, not granted. Syril assumes control, the locals never gave it. Echo chamber as metaphor. That wide shot is more than cinematic flair. It's Syril's worldview in miniature. He thinks he's projecting strength, but what he hears is the emptiness behind it. This scene isn't about a man taking charge, it's about a man who can't stop performing order, even as the world shrugs and keeps slouching forward. We open on a quiet shipyard, wide and sterile, populated with rusting vessels and distant industry. It's not clear whether these ships are being built or dismantled, and that ambiguity sets the tone. This is a place between purpose and decay, a yard for things no longer trusted to fly. Pegla, trailed by his alien hounds, hears something and cautiously investigates. His body language tightens. This isn't a man confronting intruders, it's someone bracing for a confrontation he's had before. When he sees Cassian, there's no joy, only resignation. He's not scared anymore, just tired. Cassian's excuse is breezy, he just forgot something. He's swapping out the ID chip log, replacing it with a blank. We assume what Cassian's actually doing here is fiddling with the black box. He's removing any trace of where this ship, which probably isn't officially supposed to be flying anyway, has been. The ship's been refueled just like before, meaning that this arrangement is routine. But this time Cassian came in daylight and Pegla knows that's bad news. Their dynamic is familiar but fraying. Pegla plays the straight man, incredulous but not surprised. Cassian gives a trademark shrug, the charm of someone who never plans to be caught and always has a reason. It's tense but not explosive. This isn't a betrayal, it's a pattern. Then Zorby crackles through the PA and... Look, I'm just gonna say it. The voice of Zorby is an uncredited cameo. There's all sorts of theories about who it is, but I know that it is Liam Neeson. If you go and check out my first video, you'll see what evidence I have. I'm planning on launching a second one, which might be out before this one, so there might be a second one with a bit more evidence and voice comparison. But people are acting like this theory is insane when I can tell it's him, and people are not acting like the theory that it's Temuera Morrison is insane, even though it's not a Kiwi accent, it's an Irish accent, and I don't know why getting Temuera Morrison in for a cameo would be any more unrealistic than getting Liam Neeson for a cameo in London, where they made it, where he's often there because he's British. So, yeah. The voice of Zorby is Liam Neeson. I am 99.9% sure, and if it's not him, it's a sound alike, which is really fucking weird. So anyway, let's get back to this. Zorby crackles through the PA. The gruff, unseen boss, Liam Neeson, yells for Pegla. Cassian's still fiddling with the ship like it's his own. Pegla's trying to stop a flood with a mop. What follows is a quiet breaking point. For Pegla, this can't go on. Cassian always leaves things better than he found them, but only on the surface. What he actually leaves behind is trouble. He smooths one thing while destabilizing another. Pegla doesn't ask questions, he doesn't want answers, he wants distance. No more favors, no more deals. And we believe him, because even though he says Cassian did him a favor, it's clear that favor came at the cost of his nerve and his trust. The line that sticks, the Cassian way, lands like a diagnosis. Pegla knows exactly who he's dealing with, and for once Cassian doesn't deny it. Takeaways: trust as erosion. This is what a burned bridge looks like when it's been slowly set alight over time. Pegla isn't shocked, he's exhausted. He's seen enough to know this is the last straw. Ships and salvage. The ambiguity of the shipyard reflects Cassian himself. Useful, half abandoned, not fully owned by anyone. He's working on a vessel that doesn't belong to him, altering its records, exploiting its gaps. The cost of favours. Cassian frames his actions as helpful, fixing the ship, making things easier, but it's always transactional, always tilted in his direction. What he sees as leaving it better, others see as increasing risk. Quiet rage. Pegla doesn't raise his voice, but his final no, repeated and emphatic, lands harder than a shout. It's the sound of someone cutting emotional ties before the damage spreads. This scene is about the moment. Cassian's way of life, improvisational, transactional, always just one lie or favour away from collapse, finally pushes someone past the point of tolerance. Pegla isn't angry so much as worn out. What ends here isn't a friendship, it's a slow drip loyalty that's been eroded one favour at a time. Cassian's charm, his resourcefulness, even his intentions, none of it matters anymore. The cost of enabling him has quietly become too high. And the moment that Pegla says no with that flat finality, it's not just a refusal, it's a severing. The Cassian way might get him what he needs in the short term, but in doing so it leaves nothing standing behind him. The final scene in Kenari is the quietest and shortest, but also the most emotionally loaded. Its significance lies not in what is said, but what is about to be lost. In terms of raw story content, almost nothing happens. A group of older children departs on a journey and one younger child is left behind. But what we are watching is the moment Cassian separates from his sister for the last time. This scene is structured to be deceptively simple. The children are framed not as frightened or cautious, but eager. They chant in unison, energized. There's no looming danger in the woods or signs of adult leadership. In fact, there's an air of ritual to their departure. These children aren't running from danger, they're running towards something they want to see, to do, to be part of. That matters because it helps explain Cassian's impulsive choice. He is still a child and he's caught up in the adrenaline of the moment. He isn't trying to abandon his sister. He doesn't even stop to consider that he is. He darts out of the tent, doesn't even acknowledge her. It takes her calling after him for him to pause, and then only briefly. His command to stay behind is not cruel, just curt. This isn't a tender farewell. He doesn't know it's a farewell, that's what makes it tragic. She stands watching him go, but she doesn't chase after him again. There's a kind of obedience in her posture, or maybe resignation. In that final wide shot, she's still. The forest around her is full of light, the lake behind quiet. Everything about it invites you to sit in the moment. Of course, we don't know yet that this is the last time he'll ever see her, but the show is telling us that. The stillness of the final shot, the silence that falls over it, the deliberate way the camera leaves her there, it all whispers to us. Even if Cassian doesn't know he's lost her, the episode does. Cassian's emotional arc, stretching across the season and the series, hinges in part on this unspoken wound, the absence of his sister and the decision he made here, a decision he didn't realize he was making. Episode 1 of Andor, titled Kassa, is not a pilot. It is a procedural onboarding ritual cloaked in slow burn noir. It does not introduce a hero, outline a conflict, or even frame a goal. Instead, it performs an act of conditioning. It teaches the audience how to watch Andor. From the opening frames, rain, shadow, neon, we are unmoored from franchise familiarity. There is no John Williams score to guide our emotion, no crawl to orient time. The story begins in a murk of uncertainty where a man walks into a brothel and stumbles into a killing. But that man is not a mystery box, he is a lesson. The show opens with a question: can you survive in a world that has no room for you? And the answer is, only if you're already broken enough to understand its rules. There is a brutal elegance to the structure. It begins in the rain, isolation, moves to Ferrix, community, swings to Pre-Mor HQ, institutional decay, loops back to Cassian, entanglement, ends on Kenari, loss. These are not discrete plot beats, they are layers of context building the ecosystem that makes rebellion necessary. The episode doesn't set the stage for a hero, it maps the ecosystem of a failed galaxy brick by rotting brick. Throughout, Gilroy and team do something radical. They weaponize absence. No subtitles for Kenari, no exposition dumps. Entire rooms of political machinery are shown but not explained. The audience is forced to behave like an embedded operative, reading posture, listening to omissions, passing tone. Authoritarianism rewards conformity, and this show punishes it. The passive viewer is excluded. They're turning you into a spy. Only the attentive, the analytical, the skeptical will survive, because this episode is full of locked doors, sealed lounges, and things just out of frame. The upstairs is closed, the names are missing, the system functions on what's withheld. You're not invited, you must infiltrate. Syril Karn and Chief Hyne are not side characters. They are ideological constructs in human form. Their exchange about the dead corpos is a masterclass in authoritarian survival. As an aside, I meant to mention this in the main scene review, but I think it's kind of funny that Disney itself does this. Nobody dies at Disneyland, am I right? They simply cease being part of the guest experience, outside of the perimeter. Hyne survives by suppressing truth. Karn seeks order by asserting control. Neither is noble. One rots the system from within by feigning ignorance. The other threatens to shatter it by believing its rules too much. This isn't dysfunction, it's design. Fascism is hollow. It doesn't need competence, just obedience. Hyne isn't dodging responsibility. He's teaching Syril how to stay employed. Syril fails to learn, and that's why he becomes dangerous. Cassian doesn't arc in this episode so much as oscillate between masks, debts, and damage control. He kills not out of impulse but necessity. He lies not to gain power but to delay collapse. Every interaction is a negotiation with reality. He is not building an identity, he's managing decay. The world sees him as dangerous, unstable, and hunted. The truth is far more mundane. He is broke. Despite being loved, he is alone, and he is running out of time. And yet he still clears the droid's vent, still notices Pegla's stress, still carries the quiet grief for the sister he hasn't yet admitted he's lost. It's the story of someone trying not to lose himself. Ferrix is not a safe haven, it is a managed precariousness. Everyone has a sideline, everyone lies, not to gain but to exist. What looks like corruption is often solidarity, what looks like silence is strategy. Cassian doesn't command respect from most here, he rents it in favours and familiarity. Brasso lies for him without being asked. Bix plays the defence without breaking rhythm. Pegla holds the line, until he doesn't. Ferrix is what happens when a community figures out how to survive under occupation before the occupiers arrive. It's a pre-resistance, a fragile ecology of secrets, barter and plausible deniability. Each of the three main locations in episode 1 models a different form of survival. On Morlana One, survival is compliance, staying low, staying quiet, submitting to systems rigged against you. On Ferrix, survival is community, favours, lies, mutual protection. But on Kenari, survival is tribal, instinctive, physical, collective but hierarchical. There are no adults, no laws, we think, no technology beyond salvage. Trust is tactile and rituals hold the group together. Cassian is shaped by all three. Obedience taught him nothing, community sustained him, but Kenari taught him how to fight without asking permission. Lines permeate the episode. Lines are drawn. You can't enter the lounge, the sister can't join the cell. Lines are painted on faces, and lines are crossed. Young Cassian into manhood, adult Cassian into a double murderer, Pegla's breaking point, and Syril's decision to walk through that door and become a crusader. Each setting in episode 1 also gives us a ground level view, not of politics as theory, but as lived reality. Morlana One shows us authoritarianism from below, not in jackboots and parades, but in petty extortions, dead-eyed security and transactional humiliation. It's a world where power is always leaning over you, not roaring at you. Ferrix shows us resistance from the ground level, not speeches or slogans, but quiet favours, practiced lies and mutual cover stories. The community becomes rebellion not through ideology, but through survival. And Kenari? Kenari is what abandonment looks like at ground level. It's the residue of exploitation, a place where children scavenge the ruins of adult failure. There is no empire there, but its consequences echo through the crash site. These aren't metaphors, they're case files. The show is documenting how power, absence and solidarity look when you're the one being stepped on. On Ferrix, Cassian is loved, but there's a quiet judgment that trails him. He brings risk, he stirs things up, and that makes him hard to defend. It's the same sort of cultural dynamic we see in The Lord of the Rings, where hobbits who venture beyond the Shire are never quite treated the same when they return. They're still kin, still welcome at the table, but they've become other. The Ferrix version is sharper, affection remains, but tolerance wears thin when your choices start to draw attention. A closer earthbound example is Good Will Hunting. Will is a working-class genius in a South Boston world that values loyalty over ambition. His friends love him, but if he leaves, if he tries to become someone else, they'll see it as a betrayal. Cassian lives in that same tension. The people around him care about him, but their love is conditional. It relies on him staying inside the culture they can manage. And when he doesn't, they lie for him, but they don't quite forgive him. This is an episode thick with insecure male posturing, Karn's stiffness, Nurchi's bluster, and Timm's sulking, even Cassian's evasions. But none of it works. The only effective moves are relational, coded, indirect. The brothel madam sees through Cassian's cover story immediately, even though technically it's true. Bix maintains control of her operation while pretending she doesn't run it. His mother and sister shape Cassian's movements through absence, concern, and memory. In this world, power isn't loud. We often see men trying to perform authority, barking orders, puffing up, trying to hold control, but it rarely gets them anywhere. The people who actually move things forward tend to do so quietly, often without needing to be seen. Influence here lives in understatement, in trust, and in spaces where no one's looking. The Pre-Mor corpo structure is a parody of power, uniforms, titles, dashboards, but it's incapable of reaction. The murder of 2 officers doesn't trigger action, it triggers a performance of avoidance. The truth is a threat not because it's scandalous, but because it might invite oversight. This is authoritarianism not as spectacle but as inertia. It is too brittle to investigate, too blind to adapt. The system prefers its own ignorance because ignorance is safe. For now. Everyone lies in episode 1. Not to climb, to survive. Cassian lies to people close to him, Hyne lies to the Empire, Karn lies to himself, but these lies are not flaws, they're adaptive behaviours. The world of Andor has no room for sincerity. Truth is a luxury, not a virtue. Every lie in this episode is either a protective shell or a strategic delay, and in that the episode makes an argument. Survival under fascism requires fiction. This is not space opera, it's not action, it's not even drama in the traditional sense. Andor is spy fiction in slow motion, Le Carre pacing, Tarkovsky textures, the politics of children of men, the class realism of I. Daniel Blake, and the emotional reserve of the lives of others. The tone is one of invisible weight, where tension comes not from what might explode, but what might finally break. It's not about whether Cassian can win, it's about whether he can make it one more day without losing another piece of himself. Episode 1 is full of pre-fractures, places where tension is accumulating, where institutions are pretending not to see what's coming. Cassian has outgrown Ferrix's tolerance for him. His "hey, relax guy" routine isn't enough for Pegla anymore. Bix's loyalty to him is conditional, fraying. Syril Karn is about to act without permission. Pre-Mor command is about to be exposed. Ferrix is about to be watched more closely. Cassian is about to realize what he already lost. This is not a story starting, it's a system starting to come apart, and the only people who will survive, for a while at least, are the ones already living in the cracks. Cassian and Syril are not just foils, they are mirrors. Each crosses a line in this episode that begins to shape who they will become. Cassian crosses into adulthood on Kenari with the painted initiation, and again when he pulls the trigger on a pleading man. Syril defies orders and begins his self-authoring as an enforcer of order. One becomes a rebel not by choice, but by necessity. The other begins the slow, frightened descent into fascism, not out of cruelty, but because rules make him feel safe. These are not transformations, but fractures, the moment where pressure becomes identity. Before I wrap up, I will read out any feedback in these episode summings up I will do, if it's something from the episode I missed, and this is indeed one of those things. Collie Bry 8912 pointed out something about the Pegla scene I missed. They say, "I always think the last line of this scene, 'Don't come back,' triggers Cassian's flashback, letting people down, the erosion of trust, all starting with when he told his sister he was coming back, and didn't come back." So, great call, thank you for that. If you think I've missed something in the future, let me know in the comments for that scene, and I will add it to this resource I'm building when I come to sum up said scene. I got so focused on analysing one scene at a time that I didn't even think about scene transitions themselves, so I will try and fix that moving forward. And right in on deadline, as I'm finishing this recording, I've actually had another bit of feedback come through. This is from NoThankYou7357, who points out that, first of all, that it's pedantic, which I don't mind at all on this channel. I said that the corpo cops were off duty. Points out that actually later we find out in the third scene with Chief Hyne that they were actually supposed to be on duty. So thank you for allowing me to clarify that point. I think again this is because this is a cross-scene insight, so I definitely need to up my game on that. In summary, Episode 1 is often described as slow, but that slowness is precision. This is not a beginning, it's a forensic reconstruction of a precondition, not of rebellion, but of decay. And like any slow-building catastrophe, the signs were all there if you were watching.